Jake Humphries, PSP NFL, 8 winning weeks in a row. Came to an end last week as we dropped point 0.4 stakes. We had the under in the Patriots game and it didn't quite kick for us. A couple of fumbles led to a couple of TDs for the Ravens and that was enough. We had the Patriots -6 though, which came home in the end, but we weren't able to get the under there, which really hurt us. Had a losing week for the first time since week 5. We've got week 15 coming up right now and I'm determined to get a winning week under our belt moving towards the playoffs. It's going to happen. I'm going to go through every single game. Now, what I'm going to do is, in order to make this a little bit less time-consuming, I'm going to have a 90-second limit per game. So I'm going to talk about each game for 90 seconds, the lines, the information, perhaps a quick lean, just to give you guys my thoughts on the game, and then I'm going to come back with an official card in a few hours. So we're going to start things off with the St. Louis Rams traveling to the Seattle Seahawks. The line here is -16. I've actually been able to secure the Rams +16.5 at Unibet, which is a bookie that we have in Australia here. The reason why I like the Rams in this game is just because I wrote an article, I wrote a passage about it. Look, the Rams aren't a very good football team, but they do have potential. They have a very good defensive line. They've got a kind of a young, exuberant defense. They've got a couple of offensive weapons. And I just think that with a big spread like this, the spread being 16.5, traditionally, the Rams have played pretty good against the Seahawks. They've won their last 3 games outright. And it's not very often that Seattle come out and win by 17 plus against the Rams. Granted, they have done it a couple of times, in particular when they do play at home in Seattle, where they are much better. But I just think that the Rams, look, after losing 3 games in a row, their defense has been embarrassed. Their coach has been fired. I just think it's time for the Los Angeles team, rather. It's a bit of a gut check time for them. They need to get after Russell Wilson. They need to break through that Seattle Seahawks offensive line, which they probably can do. Hopefully Robert Quinn plays, who is their best player, full stop, period. He's been injured. He's had some concussion problems this week, but he should be coming in. So just to get this one out of the way early, the St. Louis Rams to keep it close and maybe even win outright. I know Seattle can score. I know they looked really good last time they played at home, but I think the Rams are going to be a different team. They're going to be motivated. They're going to be angry. I think they're going to come out and stick it to the Seattle Seahawks. Rams +16.5. Now, the next game we have is the Miami Dolphins going to New York to play the Jets. This is an AFC East divisional game, second divisional game so far. The big story coming out of this one is that Ryan Tannehill won't be playing. Now, the Dolphins are -2.5 in this one. The Jets are going to be at home, obviously, with Bryce Petty starting in quarterback. Bryce Petty's been so-so. He's thrown 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions in the appearances that he's had so far this season, but he was really pretty good on the road last week against the 49ers. One thing I will say about the 49ers is they're 1-13. Or 1-12, or whatever they may be. They're a very bad team, and I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult to get the job done against a defense like Miami. The Dolphins do have Rashad Jones on injured reserve. They are missing a few players, but they still have a pretty strong defense. Cameron Wake. The Dolphins' defense is a lot more stingy than the 49ers' defense, and I think you'll find that Bryce Petty may have a few more struggles in this game. Look, I don't have a play release for this game yet. I'm really not sure exactly what I'm going to do, but I do think that Matt Moore is a good backup quarterback. In fact, Matt Moore could be the best quarterback on the night in terms of, talent, experience, ability. Yeah, I think that Matt Moore is probably a better quarterback than Bryce Petty, even though he hasn't played for a long time. I think he's only taken a handful of snaps in the last 5 seasons. I think that Matt Moore poses more of a threat to the Jets defense than what Petty does to the Dolphins defense. Also, Matt Forte is doubtful for this game. It looks like Jay Ajayi is going to be, the dominant running back on the field with Matt Forte out. Yes, the Jets have Powell, but I think if Jay Ajayi can get the ball moving, Matt Moore can dump it off to Landry and company. I think that the Miami Dolphins are going to have enough to win this game, and that's my early prediction for this one. I think the Miami Dolphins will win, and they'll do it for Ryan Tannehill. Now, the next game, I'm going to go in order. I'm going to go on NFL.com, and I'm going to go from left to right on the website, and that's how I'm going to order the games that I talk about. So the next game is the Philadelphia Eagles at the Baltimore Ravens. The line for this one is roughly very accurate line, this one. I think that the Baltimore Ravens defense at home is just head and shoulders better than how they play on the road. On the opposite end of the spectrum, the Philadelphia Eagles do really struggle on the road. So the line here I see is 5.5. The Eagles lost last week. Their season is pretty much done. Coming into this one with, I believe, a 5-8 record. The Eagles were kind of leaning on their home ground being a really good fortress for them. But they've lost 2 games in a row at home. And now they're going on the road to play the Ravens, who are really, really vying for that top spot in the AFC North. I think the Ravens defense is really going to be able to get after Carson Wentz, Terrell Suggs, or they have some good players. Jimmy Smith, their defense is quality, and Carson Wentz struggled against Washington. Well, he played okay against Washington, but we'll definitely say he struggled against Cincinnati. He struggled against Green Bay. I think this is a spot where the Eagles are going to have a lot on their plate. The Ravens are hungry. I think the Ravens are going to blow them out. I would probably take the -5.5, but we'll see what happens with that. Next game we have, what do we got? We got the Cleveland Browns at the Buffalo Bills. Okay, look, the Cleveland Browns coming into this one as a rightful 10-point underdog. They're 0-13. They haven't won on the road. They haven't won at home. They're 2-4 against the spread on the road. The Buffalo Bills are 2-4 against the spread at home. The reason that is, they've played a couple of games at home where they've been a relatively big favourite against Jacksonville, for example, where I think they were a 7-point favourite. I don't know if they ended up covering in that game. I should actually probably check that one, but I don't have a whole lot of time. But I guess what I'm saying is the Buffalo Bills have had a couple of tough games at home, but also I think have had a couple of games at home where they've been expected to win by large margins and haven't quite come out and gotten the job done. And look, they've played the Patriots at home. They've played the Cardinals at home. They lost to the Jets at home at the start of the season. They beat the Jags by 7. They lost to the Steelers. So I guess they have had a couple of tough opponents at home. But you do normally associate the Bills with having a really strong home field advantage. And given the fact that the Cleveland Browns are just that bad, I think the 10 points is a fairly accurate line. The only thing is here with this game, I feel like the Buffalo Bills at 6-7 probably have like a 2 or 3% chance of making the playoffs. So when you're talking about levels of motivation, you might get a sneaky, motivated Cleveland Browns team coming in here. 10 points is a lot of points in the NFL, man. Things can happen. Cleveland get a couple takeaways and make a game of this. I actually don't mind the Browns at +10. I think if I was going to take anything in this, I would take the Browns at 10. I think they can probably keep it inside that number just because by virtue of being desperate, no one wants to go winless. The Buffalo Bills are probably going to be a little bit deflated after last week's loss where they just got gashed by Le'Veon Bell. I think this could be one where the Browns really stick it to their opponent and get close. Buffalo definitely capable of blowing them out, but if you force me to take a side, I'd take Cleveland +10. Okay, next game we have the Green Bay Packers at the Chicago Bears. Aaron Rodgers is obviously on fire. He's trying to run the table for the Packers. They've won 3 in a row. The Bears are 3-10. They're 4-2 at home against the spread, which means they're covering numbers at home, keeping themselves closely fixed in games. They beat the Vikings at home. They beat the 49ers at home. So, the Bears, for the amount of injuries that they have, are actually doing a relatively good job being gutsy and staying in games. They did it last week at the Lions. I think that's a credit to their coach, John Fox, who is probably going to be jobless soon, but I feel like he's done a pretty good job with the Bears under the circumstances. But as far as this game goes, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to have his way with the Bears. The line of 5.5 does look a little bit small to me, although, the Packers still aren't a top team in the NFC, but they're definitely playing like one. They're playing like a team that is definitely capable of covering 5.5. And if I was on a side, I'd be on the Packers to win this one by double digits, man. Packers -5.5 is something that I do like and could even be on my card. The next game after that is the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cincinnati Bengals, where the Cincinnati Bengals open as a +3 home underdog. A lot of people have been a little bit confused about why this line is 3 and potentially not 4 or 5 or 6. Well, I'll tell you, I've got 2 words. I've got an acronym and I've got a word. It's the AFC North. These games are traditionally close. If you take the Browns out of the picture, when you look at the Steelers, Bengals, and the Ravens, these games are pretty close. Look, the Bengals are 5-7. Their season is all but over, but they don't want to roll over to the Steelers. They want to hold down the fort. They want to play well at home. Look, the Bengals are still 3-2 at home. They're 3-2 against the spread at home. Andy Dalton is playing better. Tyler Eifert has come back, and we really can't undersell the value that Tyler Eifert has for Andy Dalton. Especially with AJ Green being out, Tyler Eifert's come back and he's really been somebody that he's been able to lean on. AJ Green was limited in practice. But, limited. That update was on the 14th of December, so yesterday he was limited. He's probably going to go down in this one as just being questionable. So if you're talking about AJ Green and Tyler Eifert being back with a Bengals defense and a Bengals team that really doesn't have a lot of injuries to blame for their lack of success, they could come out and ambush the Steelers here at home. I definitely think this is a danger game for the Steelers and a game where the Bengals shouldn't be taken lightly, and a game where the +3 line is an accurate one. Okay, the game after that, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars playing at the Houston Texans, where the Texans reclaimed the top of the division with a win over the Indianapolis Colts. That was my biggest bet of the season personally. Had about 500 Australian dollars on the Houston Texans +6.5, which is a big bet for an Aussie uni student. And this week they're -6, playing host to the Jags. Look, where would I touch this line? To be honest, I don't really know. I would probably. It's a coin flip for me. The reason why I'm not quick to jump on the Texans -6 is because I feel like the Texans are more of an underdog kind of team. They do play well at home. In fact, I'll just get the Texans' home record. They are 5-1 at home, 4-1 against the spread at home. The Jags are 1-5 on the road straight up. But this line of 6 is a pretty big line for a team that's probably not averaging much over 20 points per game. Brock Osweiler is still a little bit fragile. He's thrown more intercepts than touchdowns this season. In fact, Blake Bortles at the other end of the field could be a better QB than Brock Osweiler. I know they're both pretty bad, but you're talking about the QB matchup in this one. Blake Bortles isn't necessarily worse than Brock Osweiler. He can make plays, especially with his feet. He's sneaky quick. This being an AFC South matchup, you've always got to respect the rivalries in terms of how close a game will be. And I think that for this one, I think I would probably narrowly be on the side of +6 to Jacksonville. This game I will not have on my card. I won't be playing it, but I can tell you that if I was going to take a side, it would be the Jacksonville Jaguars +6. The next game is an absolute boomer of a game. It's one that I'm really excited about. It's the Tennessee Titans traveling to Kansas City to play the Chiefs. Look, the Chiefs have had a 10-day rest, 10-day turnaround. This line's gone from 6 back to 5.5. The Chiefs are the favourite. They're 5-1 at home against the spread. Sorry, 5-1 at home straight up and 2-4 at home against the spread. They have I think they have everything in order to cover 5.5 against the Titans. Yes, the Titans beat Denver last week. Yes, they're 7-6. Yes, they're playing for a spot atop the AFC South. But the Kansas City Chiefs, to me, have everything in place. They have Alex Smith, who is beginning to play a little bit less conservatively, which is great to see. They have Spencer Ware, who's a good running back. They have a solid offensive line. But the big thing for me is Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. Those two guys are excellent targets for Alex Smith, and they both bring a little bit of something different to the table. Tyreek Hill's a wide receiver who you're traditionally or more typically putting in the slot position. He can come around on the end arounds. He can get yards after the catch. He can burn you deep. He can do it all. He can catch the screen. And then Travis Kelce's that guy who's a big body, a big target, a jump ball kind of target. But the dude is what, probably 250 pounds, but can still really stretch the field. So he's kind of got wide receiver speed. He's got great hands. He's got the swagger. There's a lot to like about Travis Kelce. And I think Travis Kelce, to be honest, is probably, without Rob Gronkowski in the league, is the best tight end that we've got going around in this league. And I think with Kelce, with Hill, with the confidence that this team's playing with, Andy Reid and Alex Smith, the 10-day layoff, etc., I think the Kansas City Chiefs are really going to win this game, and I think they may even cover the spread as well. The next game, we have the Indianapolis Colts traveling to Minnesota to play the Vikings, where the Indianapolis Colts come into this one as a 4.5-point underdog as of right now. Look, that I would be on the side of 4.5, okay? I would take the 4.5. If I was going to take anything, I would take the plus, only because I don't feel like the Vikings are built to cover points. Yes, they're 5-1 against the spread at home. Yes, they've got a really good defense. Yes, the Colts have a horrible offensive line. But, this one's tricky for me because Andrew Luck is that guy who, against all odds and against all of the situations that are against him, he can come out and he can turn in a good game. He can come out and drop 350 yards for a few TDs. Andrew Luck's the kind of guy who can take control of a game against anyone and turn in a good performance, especially against a mid-level team like Minnesota, who are a little bit vulnerable in certain areas. I think that this is one where Andrew Luck really needs to take charge. He tried to do it last week against the Texans, but really didn't get the protection. I am worried about the Colts' offensive line in this one, just because that Vikings' defensive line is so good. But for me, 4.5 is a pretty big buffer for a team like Minnesota, who's not really used to blowing teams out. Both teams need to win. Probably the Vikings more so than the Colts, Actually, no. It's the Colts are 6-7, the Vikings are 7-6, and the reason I say that is because the Colts are closer to the division leader in the Houston Texans than what the Vikings are. But assuming the Titans or the Texans pick up a win this week, the Colts could fall 2 games back with a loss, which means the Colts need to get a move on. They're 3-1 against the spread on the road. They're 3-2 on the road straight up. I think this is one where the Colts would be able to cover the number and potentially win the game outright. Okay, next game. What do we got for you guys? We have the Detroit Lions at the New York Giants. Okay, this one's tricky, this line, because the line is 4, and the Giants are favourites, and they deserve to be favourites, but I can tell you there's probably a little bit more public backing on the Lions. The New York Giants are 6-1 straight up at home. They're 4-3 at home against the spread. The Lions are 3-3 ATS and straight up on the road. Look, I think the reason why the Giants are probably a little bit more of a solid option here in terms of -4, I think the Lions are... I hate saying this. I think the Lions are due for a loss, but the way they've been playing lately, they were only able to just get out of a game against the Bears last week where Matt Stafford threw a pick 6 down the stretch and then kind of just eked his way home for a win, a 3-point win over the Chicago Bears. They've had a bit of a tough stretch with a road game over the Saints, a physical Thanksgiving game against Minnesota. Is it time for the Lions to come back down to earth? They're 9-4. Could it potentially open the door for the Packers to come back into the division? Yeah, look, I really think that in this one, the Lions are probably going to struggle. And this is one where the Giants, coming off the back of a really big primetime win against the Dallas Cowboys, are going to be able to come out and probably catch the Lions napping on a tough road trip. Giants 9-4. They want to stay hot on the tails of Dallas. I think the Giants probably -4 is a better option than anything here. Okay, what have we got next? We have the Arizona Cardinals playing host to the New Orleans Saints. Where, this one, there's not a whole lot on the table for either team because the Arizona Cardinals come in with a 5-7 record. The New Orleans Saints come in with a 5-8 record. Check that. The Cardinals are 5-7-1 because they had the tie in there. But either way, both of these teams are pretty much out of contention. The Cardinals come into this one as a 2.5-point home favourite. This is really a bit of a coin flip. I think I'd like to think the Cardinals are a good chance of winning this one at home. The Saints are 5-1 against the spread on the road. However, with this spread only being 2.5 points, it's relatively small. So you're looking at more of a straight-up situation here. Can the Saints win the game? Well, I'm not too sure. For me, I would probably say yes, the Saints can win the game, but I genuinely think this is a coin flip kind of game. With the way Carson Palmer's playing, he's front here and see what's happening with Tyrann Mathieu. He's returned to a limited practice on Wednesday, so we're probably looking at I don't really know if he's going to play. Patrick Peterson, he didn't practice. He's going to be questionable coming into this one, but you'd think someone like Patrick Peterson will find his way out to the field. But yeah, the line of 2.5. Look, for me, I think this is a pretty 50-50 proposition. However, the Cardinals just have that slight edge at home. I think they're probably capable of winning by a field goal. Their last home game was against the Redskins, where they were able to pick up a pretty big win, and I think they'll be able to do it against the Saints by the slimmest of margins. Cardinals -2.5, or even the money line is where I'd be looking. Okay, now the next game after that, we have the San Francisco 49ers traveling to the Atlanta Falcons, where the Falcons opened as an 11-point favourite, but have since been driven to -14 for obvious reasons. Their offense is great. Julio Jones is probably going to play. The San Francisco 49ers literally just keep losing, just cannot find a way to win a game. They had a nice lead against the Jets last week and kind of just plummeted. Julio Jones is not practicing Wednesday. So the thing about Julio Jones is he was listed as probable last week. A lot of people were whispering about him not going to play, but the general consensus was, yes, he was going to make it out there. But he didn't end up playing at LA. This turf toe is something that's obviously troubling him. I think if they were to be missing Julio Jones in this one, it would probably knock 2 or 3 points off the spread, but really wouldn't. I don't think it would bring an upset situation onto the table. Yes, the 49ers might cover the 14. They're definitely not going to win. If I was to back a line on this, I would still take the Falcons -14. If they were without Julio Jones, I'd still probably take the Falcons -14. Their defense isn't too bad anymore. They've still got Sanu. They've got Freeman. They've got Coleman. They've got Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's an absolute stud. He's one of these guys who, hasn't won a Super Bowl. I don't even know if he's won a playoff game from memory. But I do know that he's a very productive quarterback. He's been on a team without a really star-studded defense. He hasn't really had a good offensive line. He's never really had a marquee running back since he started. He had Michael Turner. He had a bit of Steven Jackson, a bit of Freeman. But to be honest, Matt Ryan's a guy who's primarily been doing it on his own ever since he was drafted. He was drafted into a pass-first team, and he kind of took that game plan and took that strategy on his shoulders and has really just led the team to their fair share of exciting wins and reasonable seasons. And I think this is a season where they're 8-5 right now, where they really need to get this win. And I think they will get the win. I like the Falcons -14. That's probably what I'd be leaning on in this one. Next game, we've got 4 games left. The New England Patriots at the Denver Broncos. This is incredible for me because the line here is Denver +3. However, Tom Brady plays so bad against Denver. You saw last year when Brady went into the AFC Championship game at Denver, he just couldn't get it going. Now, look, I know the Patriots just played the Baltimore Ravens, and they did a very good job against that defense, which is the best defense in the league, allegedly, whatever. But I don't care what anyone says. This Denver Broncos defense at home is more capable than a road defensive performance you're going to get from the Baltimore Ravens. Like, what I'm suggesting here is this game's going to be harder for the Patriots than what Monday night's game was. The Broncos look, they're relatively healthy. They're going to have the big guns in on defense. They're going to have Brandon Marshall. They're going to have Aqib Talib. They're going to have Chris Harris. They're going to have everyone. They're going to have Derek Wolfe. This is a Broncos team that knows how to get after it. They know how to beat the Patriots. And I think this is a venue where Tom Brady has a little bit of a psychological issue coming here to play. Look, I know Tom Brady's a Hall of Fame, probably the best quarterback of all time, but if you look at his history, this is the team that he has struggled against. The only problem is, can Trevor Siemian produce enough points and produce enough offensive production to allow his defense to go and get this game for him? I'm not too sure, but I never go against history. I never go against trends, and I never ever back public heavy plays, or rarely do I back public heavy plays. I like the Broncos +3, and I'd love to see them win outright. I think it'd be great for the league. It'd be great. It'd be a great thing to see. I'll take Denver +3 with the points as a lean. Remember, don't bet on any of these things. Wait for my card to come out, but I'm just talking about what I like. Now, the Oakland Raiders are going to be traveling to the San Diego Chargers, where the Raiders have a 10-day rest after a pretty taxing game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Derek Carr had an injured finger, and you would like to think that finger is back to 100% now. They are 5-1. They are 5-1 on the road, straight up and against the spread. Let me see if I can get a report on Derek Carr's finger, just to see how he's travelling. He's not even on the injury list, so he's going to play. Like, obviously, he's going to play. It's just last week he was a little bit hindered handing the ball off. You could see that there was potentially a little bit of accuracy issues, just because he did have a broken finger, a dislocated finger against the Carolina Panthers, I believe it was, a few weeks back. But you'd think he's back to his best now. The Oakland Raiders, their defense isn't great. To me, this game reeks of overs. Like, I think this game's probably going to be pretty high scoring. But the Raiders coming off a 10-day turnaround should be fresh. They've probably been camped in San Diego for a while. Actually, they probably haven't been, because it's only a couple-hour flight to go south down to San Diego. But I guess what I'm saying is the Raiders are going to be fresh. They've got the motivation for that number 1 seed in the AFC, and the Chargers are 5-8. They're not getting any better. They're 3-3 at home, straight up and against the spread. So I think this is a pretty straightforward line. Some people are saying this line could be bigger. I personally capped it at about 5 for the Raiders, and I think the fact that it's at 3 is a little bit scary. It could be a bit of a trap play, but for me, there's no trap about Derek Carr. This guy's the truth. I think he's going to go in there and get a win. It could be a shootout, but I think he'll have enough at the end of the day to get the job done for the Raiders, and I think they'll get the win, and I would lay the 3 with them on the road. Second last game is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers traveling to Dallas, where the Cowboys had their first loss in what seemed like forever. But they're coming back home where they're 5-1 straight up and 4-2 against the spread. But you want to talk about impressive records. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 5-1 on the road against the spread. They're 5-1 on the road straight up. They're 8-5 overall, and they're tied atop the NFC South with the Falcons. So this is a really, really, really strong team. But, the Dallas Cowboys weren't very good on the weekend, and some people are suggesting that there's a bit of a blueprint discovered for Dak Prescott and how you can stop him, because he wasn't great against the Giants. Maybe you can stop Dak Prescott, but can you stop the O-line and Ezekiel Elliott? Do the Buccaneers have the ability to do that? Yeah, their defense is pretty young, pretty strong, but going back to Jerry's world in Dallas, I think the Cowboys are probably going to have enough to get the job done here. -7's a pretty big cover, but I think the Dallas Cowboys can do it. They could win by exactly 7, but if I was going to get on either line side, I would jump the 7. I'd take Dallas to cover. I think that this is a game they know that is very important for their organisation. There's a little bit of a sniff of the Tony Romo topic coming back into everyone's mind. I think this is one where where Dak Prescott hits his guys. He hits Beasley, he hits Witten, he hits Bryant. I just think this is one where Dallas will get themselves back on track and kind of silence those Romo fans for at least another week on their way to a 12-2 record. The last game, probably not the most exciting game, but it definitely could be high scoring. In fact, there's a couple. Actually, I'm going to retract that statement because there's an element here where Josh Norman, current Redskins quarterback, is playing against the team that he left in the offseason for a huge paycheck, the Carolina Panthers. The Redskins opened as a 4-point home favourite. They've since been driven out to 6.5. This game's close. I like the Panthers in this one, plus 6.5, just because I think it could be high scoring. Look, Cam Newton's not playing very well at all. There's something wrong with that team. They're 1-5 straight up on the road and 1-4 on the road against the spread. But you know what? I keep thinking Cam Newton, and I shouldn't because he's been relatively bad for the entire season. But I just think that when I'm looking at these two games, these two teams, the Panthers still have Benjamin Olsen, Stewart, Cam Newton. Let's see if Kuechly's playing. Let's see, because that obviously makes a huge difference. I know Luke Kuechly's the kind of guy that's going to want to get back out in the field as soon as he can, no matter what the situation is in their season. Luke Kuechly with a concussion. Panthers coach Ron Rivera said the team is not shutting down Luke Kuechly. So that basically means that they're not going to hold him out for the rest of the season. They're going to do everything they can to get him back on the field. Charles Johnson, the talented defensive line, has been ruled out for week 14, but hopefully he comes back and plays in week 15. Ryan Khalil's out for the season. Michael Orr's out for the season. So obviously this offensive line is relatively depleted. However, I still think the Panthers have enough to at least rally with the Redskins back and forth in what could potentially be a high-scoring game. I think they can stay within the 6.5. And that's pretty much my wrap. 26 minutes. I just talked about 16 games, so I stayed under that 90 seconds per game mark. Look, I've got one play locked in, which is the Rams plus 6.5. But in terms of what I'm actually going to do with my official card, you're going to have to wait out. You're going to have to contact me, talk to me about what I'm going to release. We're going to have a winning week this week. There's absolutely no doubt about it. I hope you just enjoyed listening to me talk like an auctioneer for nearly half an hour. My throat's killing me. But I love doing it, okay? You got my take on every single game, the lines that I like. Definitely like the Rams plus 16.5 in a game that I think they could even win outright. There's going to be something brewing tomorrow. I think it's going to be a really close game, that one in Seattle. Rams plus 16.5. Got a few leans hanging around there, but you're going to have to wait to see exactly what I like. Check me out for my card. PSP NFL, Platinum Sports Picks on the public Facebook page. Inbox Jake Picks. Get at me, okay? NFL, we're going to win this weekend, week 15. I'm confident I'm the best in the business at this. This is what we live for. Week 15, a lot on the line. It's going to be a great week. Hope you like listening. Let me know what you thought.